Hello there and welcome to another video by LNER fan 4472. Let me start off by apologising once again for the long absence. There's been a lot going on recently in my personal life. I hope you accept my apologies for the long absence, and I am back once again, this time doing re-reviews on locomotives that I did in mid to late 2011. These include locomotives from the East Coast Pullman and the legendary A4 Pacific Merlin, which we shall be doing the review on today. As you can see, I've got the box here. Now usually you'd expect a cover on the front with displaying the locomotive, but in the house move I seem to have misplaced that. So let me show you what the packaging's like. It's the standard Hornby affair now. This is the much easier to use packaging. Simple as that. Let's get rid of that. Now usually the locomotive will be sitting in here, and then you've got these two things that hold the two parts together, and then instead of having to poke your fingers in the back trying to get the locomotive out, which often damages them if you're not very careful, you take the front cover off and then voila, that's how you access your locomotive. Now obviously the locomotive is already out of the box, and here she is. Now she's been made to look her absolute best for this review. She's just coming up to over a year now, a year of age. So she's been through an overhaul, you know, overhaul. But I've gone and oiled all the joints up. She runs perfectly. I've given her a nice polish. She's been cleaned, no fingerprints yet, and she just looks absolutely fantastic. So let's get into the locomotive itself. Now to me, that is the point of view of how the A4s became so iconic. The streamlining and this casing here just made the A4s so unique, and they weren't like their LMS counterparts, because the LMS Coronation Scots, please correct me if I'm wrong, were very difficult to maintain because of the casing, but the casing with the A4 Pacifics was much more integrated into the design of the boiler and the cab and everything down below, wheels, etc. So it was integrated in a lot more. Now the only thing that was changed with the A4 Pacifics, this changed when it came, when the A4s came into ownership by BR, was that the side valances, or skirting if you like, were removed. Because obviously before every morning, or before every day, you have to oil all these joints up in real life, you know, get those lubricated. And obviously they were very difficult to access. Now you did have panels to open them, but they weren't very easy to open, so BR just thought, right, let's take the skirting off, and in some ways they did look a bit better, but I think it's totally up to personal preference whether you like them with the valances on or off. But let's get into the locomotive itself. Now, Merlin was my very first A4 Pacific, excluding the railroad mallard I had when I was a child. She still is one of the most detailed models I have on my layout to date, and it's just absolutely fantastic. And now that you can see this video in 720p high definition, it makes all the difference. Make sure you're watching in HD. So if we have a look at the tender first and put the locomotive to one side, there we have the BR Lake crest. This has 4 axles or 8 wheels. We've got the small tension lock coupling. Sprung buffers, you know, that's standard for more or less every super detailed locomotive nowadays. And here we have the corridor tender variant, designed by Gresley. Now these were absolutely revolutionary at the time, you know, in the world of steam locomotives. This is just absolutely amazing. There you have the little door. The lighting's poor, so you might not be able to see. There's a door just there, and it leads through that bit there, through the side, and then out to the back. Now, as a child I used to think it went through the middle, but obviously that would affect coal capacity by quite a bit. And the axle bearings, or axle boxes should I say, I was expecting a little bit of detail there. The underbody of the tender is slightly less detailed than I would expect it to have been. Not a massive disappointment, but the detail of the locomotive makes up for it by a long shot. You see, we got fingerprints already. And it's just a brilliant tender. Still, not as good as the LMS Stanier tender, which did seem a lot smaller, but it did have a lot more capacity. Bit of a man trick going on there, I think. Anyway, let's put the tender to one side. Now we can take a look at Merlin herself. what we've wanted to look at all along. Now, the thing about steam locomotives is, I don't know how Hornby do it, but the linkage is just absolutely fantastic. Regardless of the locomotive, it just looks absolutely brilliant every single time. Sprung buffers, obviously. 60027 Merlin. All the A4s were given 60,000 number classifications, starting off from 6001 all the way to 60033, which I think that was the last A4 Pacific to be earned in BR. Now look at that. This is a year and a half old now, and for that to come on a model like this was just absolutely fantastic. She did set me back a little bit. She did cost £150, but it's well worth it, I think. I've had no problems with her. She's been very, very reliable indeed. The only complaint I do have about this particular model, which is coming into a lot of Hornby models nowadays, is this. Now this is for DCC. If you operate a DC layout, you won't need this. Actually, I think you will, because you can put the chip in the tender, and there's a blanking plate that comes on where you're supposed to put the DCC decoder. Whether it still works on DC without this being plugged in, I don't know. You'll have to try that yourself. But that was the only problem. It's extremely fiddly. Now I advise extreme caution when you are fitting it. If possible, try and get your hands on one of the Pico maintenance cradles, so you can put the locomotive upside down, and it makes your job a million times easier. On the top, the best thing is feeling all the rivets. They're all in the right place, you know, thousands of them. It just looks absolutely fantastic. Without a shadow of a doubt, one of the most iconic types of locomotives ever made in Britain. And we're so fortunate to have so many survivors. We have 6 in total, and they're all in the UK at the moment. And make sure you attend Mallard 75 on July the 3rd. Thank you very much for watching. The next video will be on Class 7P Bunsen.